Now.
Fox News alert. Former FBI Director James Comey is back on Capitol Hill for round 2 of closed-door testimony more than a week after he told lawmakers some version of "I don't know" or "I don't recall" at least 245 times regarding the Russia probe. This is Outnumbered, and I'm Melissa Francis. Here today is Harris Faulkner, former Ohio State Democratic Minority Leader Capri Cafaro, host of Kennedy on the Fox Business Network, Kennedy, and joining us on the couch today, co-host of Benson and Harp on Fox News Radio, Guy Benson. You picked a good day to be here.
It's always a good day.
Yes,
to be
I agree.
Couch.
You are correct.
Thank you, ladies. Merry Christmas.
And to you
Merry
as well.
Christmas. Okay.
Big
Yeah,
pudding for everyone. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Comey speaking behind closed doors to the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees amid growing questions over the FBI's handling of the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. This after Comey recently admitted the FBI did not follow normal procedures in questioning former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He is set to be in court tomorrow for sentencing after pleading guilty to lying to FBI investigators. Recently, Flynn's lawyers have suggested that the agency set him up. But this weekend on Sunday Morning Futures, former Bush Attorney General Mike Mukasey said he does not believe the FBI entrapped Michael Flynn.
Entrapment has a legal meaning. It means overbearing somebody's will. In other words, if somebody resists committing a crime, you try to persuade him, say please, and so on. And giving somebody the opportunity to commit a crime that he's otherwise inclined to commit is not entrapment, even if it sounds unfair or looks unfair.
But Republican Congressman Darrell Issa says the FBI's actions put the conviction in the Flynn case in jeopardy.
And I would not be surprised a bit that the conviction of Flynn is overturned because of the Justice Department and the FBI's misconduct, and that in fact we go potentially all the way to Supreme Court with new protections when the FBI and the Department of Justice lies to somebody and tricks them into making statements and then charges them with a lie that they entrapped them in.
Meanwhile, Republicans are telling Fox News that a main focus of the questioning on James Comey today will be the anti-Trump dossier compiled by ex-British spy Christopher Steele and funded by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and whether or not James Comey knew those facts when he was signing off on the investigation. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live in Washington with more. Catherine.
Thanks, Melissa. We're 2 hours into the session. The expectation is that it should run about 6 hours today, with the transcript released within 24 hours of it finishing at about 4 Eastern. So far, what we've heard from committee staffers is that they're saying James Comey has been a very consistent witness, which appears to be code for him not answering a lot of their questions directly, or saying that he cannot speak to the thinking or the actions of other individuals. Heading into the session, he did not take our questions either.
Director Comey, will you take some questions? On the interview of National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, you said you did not follow standard procedures. Was Flynn a special case? How was the handling of the Flynn interview consistent with the Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide?
The Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide, known by FBI agents, is the DIOG. It's like their roadmap for handling investigations, specifically investigations involving what they call sensitive individuals. So this would be people who are elected or political appointees. Another Republican told us this morning that they want answers about the memos that Comey wrote documenting his conversations with the president. At least one of those memos was leaked to the media. Here's Congressman Jim Jordan.
First of all, we hope he actually answers some questions today. You know, last time 245 times he said he didn't know, couldn't remember. So we hope he answers more questions. I think I'm going to ask him about the Comey memos. You know, he did 7 different memos back when he was meeting with the president, meeting with the chief of staff. So I'm going to ask him questions about those things he wrote in there.
Now, on the other side, Democrats have said consistently that they think that these closed-door sessions ought to be public so that all of us can hear the exchanges, the questions, and the answers. And they also say they believe it's an effort by Republicans to tarnish and to damage the reputation and the integrity of the special counsel investigation. Earlier today, a senior Senate Democrat responded to a tweet over the weekend from the president attacking the FBI investigation and the U.S. Attorney's investigation of his former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, and the credibility, if you will, of the search warrant. Senator Coons said this is more evidence that they need legislation to protect the special counsel.
There are a few who, every time there's been a tweet like this, step forward and say the Mueller investigation has to be protected. Mueller is executing, an appropriate investigation. Quietly, the vast majority of them say it's not a witch hunt. We're going to take steps to protect it.
Also this morning in Alexandria, Virginia, they unsealed an indictment against former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn's business partner. This is a conspiracy, also acting as an agent of a foreign government, in this case Turkey, as well as making false statement. It's important to note that this comes really on the eve of Flynn's sentencing, which is still scheduled for tomorrow, Melissa.
Catherine Herridge, terrific reporting as always. Thank you so much. I want to bring it out to the couch. Guy, so Catherine mentioned this memo, which we have here, that was released by the FBI on Friday, heavily redacted. It recounts what Comey told the president about the dossier and the source specifically. And in here, he describes the source as an executive of a private business intelligence firm, says that his research, some of which has been corroborated in the past, the source collected this information on behalf of private clients and was not compensated for it by the FBI. So it said the FBI didn't pay for it, but didn't tell the president who did.
Right.
In other words, HRC and the Democrats. Why would Comey not tell the president that?
Well, I think his argument would be that he didn't know. And I'm thinking back to the
interview. Well, then
interview.
why wouldn't he ask? We didn't pay for this information. Isn't the next logical, if you're typing that in, was not compensated for this by the FBI, as a human being, my next question is, so who did pay for it?
Although Steele was at some point paid by the FBI as well later on in the process, I think Comey would say, I didn't know that it was the DNC or the Democrats. I was thinking back to the interview that Brett Baer did with Comey, the one interview he did on Fox News, where he claimed still at this late date that he still wasn't sure that it was the Democrats or the Hillary Clinton campaign who paid for that dossier, and said, I think it was Republicans who originally paid for it, which was a debunked talking point. For someone who seems to understand a lot of details and is very confident in his own lack of guilt in this situation, or at least not holding any responsibility, there are some very big blind spots it seems like Director Comey has. That being said, that was a lot we just took in from Catherine Herridge.
Yeah, there was a lot in there.
And the wind-up to this whole conversation, the idea that anyone like the FBI or the Justice Department entrapped Michael Flynn because they didn't tell him not to lie to federal investigators. You shouldn't have to tell that
can I jump
to
in on
anyone,
that one?
let alone the former director of the DIA. Like, he knows you shouldn't lie to the FBI.
Right. Let me just jump in on that, because before we went on air, I was actually watching Judge Andrew Napolitano on the previous program, and I really agree with what he presented there, because Michael Flynn has allocuted, he pled guilty in court saying, I did these things. So the prospect of an overturning of his conviction is really not possible, because he would then have to subsequently say, I lied in court, and therefore perjure himself. So, the concept of him being overturned, as much as I have an immense amount of respect for Darrell Issa, who is an Ohio native, I do disagree with him on this one, and I think Judge Knapp is right on.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess the one thing that I would say about what James Comey is saying now about this anti-Trump dossier isn't what we really want to know at the very end of the day, is what was told to the FISA court. Right? And so my question would be, does this give us a window into what might have been said or left out, whether he knew it or not?
Yeah,
Kennedy?
I think the sins of omission are a little bit more profound here in terms of what was left out of that FISA warrant application. But here, you've got someone sitting down with the FBI, and there's a difference between sitting down and having a conversation and sitting down and taking a test and having the results of that test affect your final grade, which is what happened here. And if they don't say, like, first of all, this is a test, second of all, we have all the answers, and that was the other thing. They had plenty of surveillance and communications. They knew what the answers were, and so any deviation from Flynn, and by the way, he was a moron for going and talking to the FBI without counsel.
Right.
That's on him, and a lot of that boils down to responsibility. Also, don't lie. But we have to acknowledge that the FBI has become so powerful, and it's just one of the law enforcement and intelligence agencies that has become so powerful that they can operate like this without transparency, and it can have
the conundrum is
very big impact on your life.
The conundrum is why wasn't he forthright in that interview? And as you read more down into it, and James Comey now says it's not that my investigators thought he wasn't lying. It was that he didn't show the signs of someone that was lying. So it was like he believed what he was saying.
He goes further. He says that with another administration, we might not have gotten away with this. It was like that they were with Michael Flynn getting one over almost. When you watch the latest from him, it's really disturbing.
Well, it's like he didn't know it was an interview. I mean, you shouldn't lie in any circumstance, of course, but
and you
there's
shouldn't
something
go to the
weird
FBI
about,
without a lawyer.
But why would he not tell the truth about this? I mean, so many people came out over the weekend and said his contact, what he lied about wasn't something he would have gotten in trouble for. That's what doesn't make any sense.
I think it's more of an optics issue. He probably was thinking and approaching it more from a political perspective, an optics perspective, rather than maybe a law enforcement perspective. I think to your point that, maybe
they're the top law enforcement agency in our country.
No kidding. But, as you said, I mean, I think that, maybe he approached it in that way, more from I want to protect the optics, I want to protect the administration.
But that goes to him not thinking it was an interview.
That's what I'm saying.
And that meshes with what James Comey
But don't you
said
think the
about
FBI
the
should
idea
disclose
that we just walked over there and we would have made an appointment. We just walked over. I just sent two guys over.
But it is
no
the
big
FBI.
deal.
But they were
And
taking
Comey
advantage
said, had it been
of
another
that
administration,
vulnerability.
they would have dealt with it
It was very
differently.
early on in the administration, and every administration, particularly this one, but every administration has vulnerability and chaos in the early days, especially if you are a neophyte politician. But having said that, there are protocols at the FBI, and James Comey has admitted that he violated those.
Now, we can speculate as to why he lied, but he didn't only lie to the FBI. Remember the entire...
You're talking about Flynn now.
Flynn, yeah. The ostensible reason, at least, for his firing as National Security Advisor was lying about the same set of facts to the vice president. So Flynn was telling untruths to multiple people, including the vice president and the FBI, probably not good moves.
I want to know why. I think we still don't know why he did that.
Mukasey made that point, the former attorney general. He's
There's something we don't know,
Yeah.
All right, a new poll shows former Vice President Joe Biden leading among likely Iowa caucus goers ahead of the 2020 election. Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Beto O'Rourke also scoring high. What those voters say is their top issue. Plus, the likely Supreme Court showdown looming after a federal judge declares Obamacare unconstitutional. President Trump applauding the ruling, but Democrats vowing to go to battle to defend the health care law. We will discuss the political impact.
We'll be sitting down with the Democrats, and we will get great health care for our people.
New reaction after a federal judge has struck down Obamacare, likely setting up a fight that will go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Texas judge finding the individual mandate unconstitutional and that the rest of the law cannot hold up without that mandate. President Trump today tweeted this: the deductible, which comes with Obamacare, is so high that it is practically not even usable. Hurts families badly. We have a chance working with the Democrats to deliver great health care. A confirming Supreme Court decision will lead to great health care results for Americans! Exclamation point. The president also hailed the decision over the weekend. Watch it.
It's a great ruling for our country. We'll be able to get great health care. We'll sit down with the Democrats if the Supreme Court upholds. We'll be sitting down with the Democrats, and we will get great health care for our people. Let's say repeal and replace handled a little bit differently, but it was a big, big victory.
But Democrats like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are vowing to have Congress intervene.
It's an awful, awful ruling. We're going to fight this tooth and nail. And the first thing we're going to do when we get back there in the Senate is put a vote on the floor urging an intervention in the case. The judge, a lot of this depends on congressional intent. And if a majority of the House and a majority of the Senate say that this case should be overturned, it'll have a tremendous effect on the appeal.
And Politico is reporting the decision poses trouble for Republicans as it allows Democrats to seize on the narrative that the GOP wants to roll back protections for pre-existing conditions, for example. And on the flip side, Democrats will be forced to defend the law, putting the party's debate over universal coverage on hold. So those are two possibilities. I mean, you might have a situation where Democrats do have to defend. You also might have a situation where, yeah, they just flip 40 seats on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, healthcare was a huge issue for the Democrats in their House victories. I do think that it's interesting to watch what they're trying to do, which is defend Obamacare, say that it's working, say that it's successful, but also pivoting to single-payer healthcare, which is sort of the new direction of the party, which Barack Obama himself has endorsed, which in some ways is an admission of failure of the law that's on the books. What I was confused about when I saw this ruling come down, I was like, why is a judge ruling on the constitutionality of the individual mandate tax? We already had that argument. It went to the Supreme Court and it was 5-4. The argument is the reason that it was re-argued is because the Republican tax law zeroed out the individual mandate penalty. The new claim in court was that's no longer a tax, which is how it was upheld by Chief Justice Roberts, and therefore it's an unconstitutional mandate.
Interesting, yeah.
But I would just point out the exact majority that saved Obamacare, those 5 justices, remains totally intact.
It's interesting because what you're talking about is also supported by polling of the American people. The majority of them say that they now like Obamacare. Some of that can be capri because they don't know what's on the other side of this, because neither political party has come up with an exact replacement.
Well, look, I mean, the American people, anyone, it's human nature. It's really tough to take something away from someone that they already have. And so I think that
it's also hard to stop a government agency.
Well, that too.
From
but look, you've opened me up to
there.
something that I really wanted to talk about because I have worked on health policy for the better part of the last 2 decades. And I would suggest that my Democrat and Republican friends, this is an opportunity to work together. And there are a number of things that they can do. President Trump is right about the very high deductibles because it does basically make people underinsured. So, for example...
Yeah, so they just go to the ER again.
No, exactly. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
They go to the free clinics. One of the things they can do is extend those premium tax credits from the silver plan down to the bronze plan, which has those huge deductibles. The cost-sharing reduction, which is something that both Democrats and Republicans have said previously that they support, that stabilizes the marketplace for individual mandates.
No.
For pre-existing conditions, rather.
No, because all of those things are just flooding more government money into the zone. I mean,
Not
you're
necessarily.
talking about, hang on, but you're talking about who pays for it. And what we really need to be talking about is bringing the cost down.
Well,
and
Melissa,
if you want to figure out how that happens, wait, 1 second. All you have to do is look at when President Trump talked about lowering the price of drugs, and I saw Lipitor, $1,400. I'm like, who's paying $1,400 for Lipitor?
Nobody, because they're using the generics.
For $20. Well, guess who is? Taxpayers, because Medicare will pay a hospital $1,400 for Lipitor because you don't have the consumer, the person who's actually paying.
You need transparency in price. You need transparency in price.
You need to get the government.
You also need pay for performance. It's something that we are doing. Pay for performance.
What do you like? Do you like? Okay. I would love to enter this discussion.
Sorry.
Because I think, once again, all sides have it all wrong, except for you, and you touched on it at the very end there. You have to get government out of this because all it is doing is complicating it and making it much more expensive and punishing people in the middle who are being left with fewer and fewer choices. One of the most critical things that our healthcare system provides to the world is not, being a mirror image of Sweden or some other Scandinavian fake mythical utopia, because that doesn't exist.
And I'm not for single-payer healthcare.
And it also, the Scandinavian model doesn't exist the way Bernie Sanders thinks it does.
Agreed.
We provide innovation. That means we do research in this country, and there are people who have incentive to get products out faster, and they compete against each other, and that's what will make people healthier
and if you improve
live
health
longer.
outcomes, you ultimately
the government
reduce
doesn't
cost.
do a great job of improving health outcomes, and there have been
Agreed.
studies
cost.
that have
Real quickly,
shown
I want to get back to something that Melissa said,
with the implementation
though.
of Obamacare, people have actually been worse off. Get government out of it. Republicans failed. They did not show that they were willing to author a free market option, which is what they desperately needed to do, and that's why they lost a majority in the House.
Melissa, you brought up this point, and you guys are kind of talking about the same thing, you and Capri, because you're trying to get it out of the ER, which is what I'm also eager to do too. So you're right, the hospitals will do that because the subsidies are there and they'll buy Lipitor. But other people, when they go to the pharmacy for something called preventive care, which we don't have enough of in our bloodstream in America, because everybody keeps going to the ER because those deductibles are so high, they will buy the generic. So it's like, how do you get people just to do that, though? Because to use what they have in terms of the healthcare. What do you need to do?
Get the government out of it. That is true, because if no human being would pay $1,400 for a medication
very few
you
could
can get for $20. Only the government would do that.
It's frustrating
with
to
our
me.
taxpayer dollars.
It's frustrating to me to see the Democratic Party argue for years what we need is a massive government intervention and intrusion into the healthcare system to bring down costs. Costs do not go down. Then the Democrats say, all right, now we need a total takeover of healthcare by the government. Not you, but that is the new hotness in your party.
All right. So interesting that on this couch, it mirrored what's happening in America. People are really focused on this issue. I know, because I was getting rapped like there was nobody's business. So we went long. We'll come back to this at some point. I know it. Lawmakers are preparing for a showdown as the White House is standing pat on the demand for building a border wall and funding a wall system. With just 4 days to resolve all of it, or parts of the government will go dark. Partial shutdown, whether the president is right to dig in or if there will be a big political fallout. Plus, special counsel Robert Mueller still wants that face-to-face interview with President Trump, but his legal team says no way. Where it all goes from here.
You're saying no way, no interview.
They're a joke over my dead body, but I could be dead.
Democrats and President Trump have only a few days left to come to an agreement on border spending and avoid a partial government shutdown. New reports that several government agencies have begun preparing for the possibility that their funding may run out this Saturday, 3 days before Christmas. But over the weekend, White House senior advisor Stephen Miller saying the administration is willing to risk a shutdown if Democrats do not agree to more funding for border security.
We're going to do whatever is necessary to build the border wall to stop this ongoing crisis of illegal immigration.
And that means
this is a very, if it comes to it, absolutely. This is a very fundamental issue. At stake is the question of whether or not the United States remains a sovereign country, whether or not we can establish and enforce rules for entrance into our country. The Democrat Party has a simple choice. They can either choose to fight for America's working class or to promote illegal immigration. You can't do both.
In the meantime, Democrats putting the pressure on President Trump to keep the government open.
Whenever I hear a president say to the American people at Christmas time, I am going to shut down your government, it pains me. Because I know that that's going to make a bad Christmas for a lot of people. And I would say to the president, there are a lot of people who have worked hard, and all they want to do is live their lives.
Capri, Democrats could get anything right now in exchange for that border wall funding. They voted
really?
for it. Yes, 215 miles of fencing, $5 billion. I mean, they voted in favor. Yeah, they've done it. They've done it.
I personally think
they turned it down.
If we really want to have
Pelosi said no.
Yeah, they were
and I think that's a mistake, because I think that the Democrats have an opportunity to send a signal coming into the next Congress that we are not going to be obstructionists, that we are going to be partners in governing, because if we are not, that is not only bad for the American people, it is also bad for 2020 politics, because President Trump can then run against Democrats and say, look, they are the party of resist. They don't have anything to offer except for being anti-Trump. I say come to the table. This is an opportunity. You care about DACA, get it done.
So are you the only one who feels like this way in former leadership? I know you were state leadership in the state of Ohio. I mean, in your party? Because this is very simplistic.
Yeah.
Chuck
that there are
Schumer
others.
shut down the government over this very issue of DACA. Now you're giving him a way forward. This isn't the original $25 billion that the president said he needed.
Right.
It's $5 billion. I'm not going to poo-poo that. That's still a lot of money. But we've already got dollars allocated for restoration of the strong fence, which is a wall, by the way. So we could call it that. And for the strong fence system, which calls for more patrol and more technology at the border.
Which is important.
So, I mean, we've already agreed on that as a nation. They've agreed on it, lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
Previously.
So is it just that you don't want to do business with President Trump?
I think that that's how it's going to be perceived, because I think that it's, Democrats are going to sit there and they're going to play directly into President Trump's hand if they don't somehow play ball.
Yeah, because he wins on this issue.
Yep.
Kennedy?
No, I think you made the best point. You figure out a list of things you want, and Nancy Pelosi has to stop saying, the Dreamers are not a bargaining chip.
How would she know? They bum rushed her at the lectern.
All she does is trade in souls for a living. That is her currency. Come on, man. She's so empathetic and heartful. This is Nancy Pelosi we're talking about. Everything is a bargaining chip. She crushes people's dreams for breakfast. That's why she's going to be Speaker of the House again. And she's owning that. And if she is going to make the country better and make these people's lives better, who are essentially in immigration limbo, then waltz into the White House with your fur coat and your fancy Louis Vuitton bag and tell the president exactly what you want. Check it off. I'm sure he will come to the table and you will avert the shutdown.
I think what they would like is a shutdown that they can blame on the president, which it seems like perhaps what we're headed for. I would just simply point out that in 2006, 80 senators voted in favor of 700 miles of double fencing, which is a physical barrier. They never paid for it. But 80 senators voted yes on that, including Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, Dianne Feinstein. They have voted in favor of this already. Give the president some of the money. Let him declare victory. You can say it was already agreed upon before Trump. Everyone can say we did our thing and go home for Christmas. But instead, because Washington is
or get something in
dysfunctional, here we
return
are.
that's painful to him. If you don't want to give in to
well, what would that
wall,
be? Because he offered so many more millions of people.
I agree with that.
And some Republicans called it amnesty. He offered a pathway that included more than just the Dreamers. So what would that be? He already offered it.
I don't think there's an offer that he can make that they would accept.
Yeah, I don't know if Democrats would say yes to anything, except for Capri.
That's right.
Anyway, a new report commissioned by the Senate offering the most extensive analysis yet into Russia's efforts to spread division and misinformation during the 2016 presidential election. The report is expected to be released sometime this week, revealing how Russian operatives use social media to target specific demographics of American voters and to manipulate conversations surrounding key issues with the goal of generating support for then candidate Trump. Meanwhile, the special counsel's investigation of Russian meddling, there are reports that Robert Mueller is still pushing for a sit-down with the president for a face-to-face interview. On Fox News Sunday, President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, said that won't happen, especially after lawyers for former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn suggested the agency set up their client. Watch.
If the special counsel doesn't want to interview the president.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. After what they did to Flynn, the way they trapped him into perjury, and no sentence for him, 14 days for Papadopoulos, I did better on traffic violations than they did with Papadopoulos.
So when you say good luck, you're saying no way, no interview.
They're a joke over my dead body, but, I could be dead.
All right, let's unpack in reverse order over his dead body.
I think that this has been the consistent message from the president's legal team. He's not going to sit down for an interview. They feel like the former legal team acquiesced too much, gave millions of pages of documents, and they have agreed to written answers. And now they see the fruits of Mueller's labor slowly coming to the surface, and none of it appears to be good news for the president. There's very little upside for him. I've always said I think that he should sit down because I think impeachment could be the best thing for him. I think it either removes him from office because he's done something horrible and he shouldn't be president, or it makes him the most popular president in the modern era and guarantees his reelection.
And you heard some Republicans even saying as much after Clinton, that it helped his numbers and lowered theirs in some cases.
They're sort of baiting the Democrats into overreach. I've heard that theory. I've said all along I don't think it makes sense for the president to sit down with Mueller's team. I mean, especially now they're saying, oh, look, they tricked Michael Flynn Flynn into lying and sort of created that crime, why would they ever put their client in that same situation? And you look at the way the president is, shall we say, cavalier and undisciplined in his tweets about these issues. Imagine an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours sitting down one-on-one where he's just talking and talking and talking. I think that Rudy Giuliani says over my dead body.
I actually can't imagine
literally,
that.
No, exactly. And Rudy can too. That's why he says over my dead body.
Melissa?
I go back to the beginning of what we were talking about with this idea of just how in-depth Russia's meddling was on places like Facebook and how much they manipulated. And I look at what's going on in France right now, and you see the riots, and I wonder, do they have a hand in that as well? I mean, I think this problem of these other countries, really meddling through social media and other, that we haven't even really scratched the surface of that, and it's causing real problems and violence around the world.
So why would we assume that that's not happening? Like, we haven't done anything in order to incentivize Russia to stop.
One second, just to follow up real quickly. So part of what I said in the intro to all of this had to do with the fact that some believe that it was for the purpose of putting a certain person in office. Why can't it just be for the purpose of messing it up so badly that nobody has any faith in the system?
There is a difference. I think there's a big difference. There's a very important difference and distinction between Russian meddling and Russian, quote, collusion for a specific outcome. There's no question. And to the point about France, during the election that ultimately yielded Emmanuel Macron, it was shown that the Russians were involved. I am fascinated by this. The Oxford Computational Propaganda agency or institute, they're the ones that actually did this study showing that Russians were meddling and targeting specifically through social media African-American voters. So there's some quantitative and qualitative analysis out there, independent from the United States, showing this is true.
Well, there are also, and
causing violence. And
there are digital democratic watchdog groups who pay attention to what the Russians are doing on social media, and they are using hashtags and fanning the flames. So none of it should come as a surprise. The question is, what do we do now to react to it? Because people have to be more sophisticated and take more responsibility in what they consume and how it affects their
Richard
perception.
Kennedy. I got hit by all shards of that mic you dropped. Okay. Democrats who want a crack at the White House need to get in the game pretty soon. And eyes already on Iowa, where Democrat voters are favoring some old faces and a rising star. And the thing those voters want most in any candidate, someone who can beat President Trump. Who would that be? We'll debate it. Stay close.
Welcome back. A new poll out of Iowa ahead of the 2020 presidential election campaigns. Caucus goers in the Hawkeye State are the first to weigh in, as you know, and the survey shows one potential Democratic candidate running well ahead of the others. And it's former VP Joe Biden leading the pack with 32%. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders has 19%. Democratic Congressman Beto O'Rourke has 11%. Followed by Senators Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. Sorry, Cory Booker. Meantime, the poll shows the more important quality in a candidate for these voters, electability, 54%, saying it's more important for the caucus winner to have a strong chance of defeating President Trump. 40% say it's more important to have a candidate who shares their positions on key issues. That makes a lot of sense, though, Capri, because even if there are big differences within the party, you still have people that will line up together in order to beat the president. Do you think that's pretty accurate for the rest of the country?
I think to an extent. I mean, and again, I think that we always need to take these early polls with a bit of a grain of salt. We have a long time in the political dog years between now and then. Someone totally random could emerge from all of this. I think in that list that we just saw, Joe Biden is probably the most likely to be electable of the group. I think that Beto O'Rourke actually is going to have more problems, frankly, with the progressive wing of the party. I've already heard people say, don't come and tell me that some white male who, lost an election is going to come in and be the front runner for president,
Wait a minute, let me stop right there. What is Joe Biden? He's all of those things.
Except for the fact that he didn't lose an election he's lost other elections. But I'm saying, here's Beto O'Rourke as a few-term congrosman. I'm not making this argument. Other people have made this argument.
He couldn't get in the White House twice. He couldn't get out of the primary.
I'm not disputing that either, but I think people are a little bit,
I think what's
frosty
saying
about it.
They haven't settled. And so we're still in the middle of the cakewalk.
The calendar still reads 2018. So we're a long way off from any votes being cast. I'm just saying, if you looked at the the polling this time in the previous cycle, Jeb Bush, please clap, odds-on favorite to be the nominee, and of course we saw how that went down. So
why he's not low energy.
I don't put a lot of stock into these very early numbers of the candidates. I do think the just win, baby response, where more Democrats care about someone who can win versus what they believe on specific issues.
That didn't happen in 2016, though.
Obviously, but is that a reaction to 2016? Is that people saying Hillary was not electable, she was not likable?
Yeah, they nominated the person who could lose to Donald Trump, and she did, and they're like, well, let's not do that again. Let's make sure that we get someone who can win.
Every political party goes through that, where they're like, listen, we just hate the other side so much. We want anyone who could possibly win. Which, in the end, it comes down to cult of personality, I think, now. That it used to be more about issues and other things, but now the whole political landscape has changed, and it's got to be somebody who can really excite people to go out. I think Joe Biden looks at that poll and gets so angry at Hillary Clinton for shoving him out of the way and insisting it was her turn because maybe he could have won.
I think he knows it now. So one of the rumors that we heard about over the weekend was, somehow the former vice president and Beto O'Rourke have made a plan, and they're the ambiguously Democratic duo.
Biden Beto? It's interesting. So Beto O'Rourke raised, north of $80 million. So you know that he can raise some money, but it was in the wrong place in the state of Texas. So does that work on the bottom of the ticket? I don't know.
I think that Democrats are going to be, I think they will not settle until they have a woman or a person of color on the ticket. Somewhere, they're not going to be happy with anything else.
Well, I can't run as a Democrat. I just can't, but I appreciate your endorsement there. All right. Got so much more. President Trump's contentious relationship with the media. It continues after Saturday Night Live fantasizes about a world without Trump ever been elected. The president lashing out, suggesting the courts should weigh in on the comedy show. Yes, we'll debate that next.
More Outnumbered in just a moment. First, we should touch base with Harris and see what's coming up on Outnumbered Overtime in just a few minutes. Harris.
All right. Well, here's what I'm working on. Former FBI Director James Comey back on Capitol Hill right now, where he's expected to be asked about Michael Flynn's claim that FBI agents pushed him not to bring a lawyer to the interview first, as well as a memo James Comey used to brief President Trump on that anti-Trump dossier. I'll talk with Congressman Darrell Issa of the Judiciary Committee, and the clock ticking down for Congress to reach an agreement to keep the government open through Christmas. But so far, there's no deal in sight for that partial government shutdown possibility. I'll talk with House Majority Whip Steve Scalise about where things stand and what will get the ball rolling. Outnumbered at top of the hour. Now back to you.
All right. Sounds awesome. President Trump slamming NBC after an SNL skit based on the classic holiday movie It's a Wonderful Life. It fantasized about a world in which Hillary Clinton was president instead of Donald Trump and how everyone's life would be so much better.
What seems to be the trouble, Donald? Who are you? Stay back. Relax. I mean you no harm. My name is Clarence, and I was sent here from heaven. I heard you were in trouble.
It's awful. Everything's falling apart. Sometimes I wish I had never been president.
A world where you were never president, eh? I think we can arrange that.
President Trump responding Sunday morning with this tweet. A real scandal is the one-sided coverage hour by hour of networks like NBC and Democrat spin machines like Saturday Night Live. It is all nothing less than unfair news coverage, and Dem commercials should be tested in courts. Can't be legal. Only defame and belittle. Collusion? Okay. So start with the SNL. Kennedy, I'll ask for your professional comedic opinion. I don't know. I watched the whole thing. I thought the thing with the vice president was pretty funny. But other than that, I don't know. So funny? SNL needs maybe some new writers.
Here's what SNL needs. It needs to not be so predictable, because that's when those shows work best. When they write jokes out of nowhere that are a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more even-handed. Because Kate McKinnon, when she would make fun of Hillary Clinton, everyone loved it, even Democrats, because politics is silly and absurd. It's not just one side. And poking fun and taking shots at the same guy in the same way over and over and over again, it gets predictable. predictable, and Saturday Night Live attracts the best and smartest minds on the planet, and they can do better than that.
We all know that there is no time that the president would ever wish that he was not elected president. That right out of the gate right there was laughable. But beyond that, I mean, for him to go back at them, right? Go back at them and talk about how the court should get involved. Why? I mean, just ignore them. Ignore them.
Well, so I think it's important on that point to just note that stale and partisan humor is still 100% legal and constitutional in the United States. I think one of the elements of this counterfactual sketch that they did was where Melania would get to divorce him and marry someone else, which is mean, right? That's mean-spirited. If he had decided to use his Twitter machine to point that out, like, why are they fantasizing about my wife divorcing me? I think you'd have more people on board, but he goes straight to the courts and law enforcement and all this. I mean,
can't be legal.
It is. I think it's absurdity on purpose. Like, he doesn't believe that this is illegal, but I don't think it's healthy for the president to be suggesting that it is.
I think this is how he expresses his frustration.
I don't think he's frustrated. I think he likes it. I mean, I think like he enjoys getting in the fight with them. I mean, because if he was
he
really
hosted the show
That's
in
a good
2016. He
oh,
hosted
that's
the show.
right.
Yeah.
Look, but Saturday Night Live has made fun of presidents since its inception.
Of course.
Gerald Ford, Dana Carvey as George H.W. Bush. I forget the guy that did Bill Clinton, making fun of it. Making fun of him eating, Big Macs and the whole night. So, then and of course Will Ferrell
it is equal opportunity
as W. So hey, I mean, that's America.
I think he's driving more viewers there. Could be a mistake. I don't know. Anyway, more Outnumbered in just a moment.